Welcome to the Adventures of Andrew Briggs. My name is Andrew, and these are my adventures. This is a podcast about the places I go, the people I meet, the things I see, and some of the lessons I learn along the way. So hop in, and let's go. Hey, welcome back to the next episode. So just to give a quick update on Utah, I'm enjoying it down here. There's plenty of projects to be done. I'm learning to do electrical, which is nice, doing wiring a whole house, which is a small house, but actually the one that I built while I was here before, and now we're putting in power, and we're doing the next few steps of that, so that's a new learning process. It's beautiful down here as well, the red rock, and it's snowing all the time, which is kind of a bummer. It's so cold, but it's beautiful also. Just I've never been in Utah to see the snow alongside the red rock. It's really nice. But this episode is not going to be about Utah. It's going to be about me continuing on in the van and where I was at this point after leaving Alamogordo and seeing White Sands and all that. The next few things on the list to see was Carlsbad Caverns and Guadalupe Mountains, Big Bend National Park. Those are kind of the next things I'm going to be talking about on this one. So after leaving Alamogordo, I took off down. Started heading down south through New Mexico, and I drove through an oil field, which was kind of cool to see. You know, you see them in the movies, and you hear people talking about the oil fields in the U.S., but I'd never been to one, so it was interesting to drive through and kind of see the pump jacks drilling down or pulling oil up out of the ground, and not many of them are moving. I think it was kind of shut down quite a bit at that point in time because of the pandemic. Well, that's what they say. There was nothing too really exciting out there, just wide open lands. It's not the main highway you take through, but it's one of the ways to go through that I thought was a little bit more interesting than just taking the normal freeway. I had to stop off when I saw a dead cow on the side of the road that had been there for a while. I saw some spoiled veal in an oil field. I just had to include a little bit of a rhyme in this one. But as soon as I stopped on the side of the road and opened the door for that cow just to check it out, it immediately filled the whole van of rotting flesh. It was nasty. I got out of there real quick and opened the windows and cleared it out fast as I could. But the next city that I hit was Carlsbad, the city of Carlsbad. It's a small, quaint town. There really wasn't much to do there. I did stop off at a few stores and got a few things I needed. But I was kind of just looking for a place to camp for one more night because I wanted to get there. I wanted to leave early in the morning and get over to Carlsbad Caverns so I could spend a few hours there, and I'd still have enough of the day after that to find a campsite and do whatever, may come up. So I found this campsite off the side of the freeway, and this was a great spot. It was just like, they got this like winding dirt road, like a mile or 2 miles up, and I had this little perch looking down on the freeway, and I collected some wood, as much wood as I could. There's not a lot of wood out there considering it's a desert, but I got what I could, and I also burnt some cacti. Yes, I don't know if they've had some bad juju or something, but they did burn really, really interesting. You could see the vein structure inside of the cactus when I was burning it, which is something a little different. I just like to burn weird things because it's just fun to watch them burn. I did find out there a random deer antler too that had been shed. That was kind of cool. Sugar were going down, But this was a nice campsite because I really sitting up there. It was like I'm sitting in front of this fire, looking down on the freeway, eating my cheesy rice that I had made, and just looking down at the cars passing by. It's a nice calming spot, a calming moment to be sitting and watching that, because cars from a distance going 60, 70, 80 miles an hour look slow, and looking down on this thing that I'm traveling on every day, it was kind of nice, calming just to look down on this peaceful, nice night, open skies, no wind, no rain, nothing like that, just calm looking down on the highway, passing the cars passing by. But yeah, spent the night there and continued on to Carlsbad. Got there pretty early in the morning, and I initially planned on spending an hour or two down there. I ended up spending about 4 or 5 hours down there because it was beautiful. It's a movie scene. It's insane. It's like Raiders of the Lost Ark or Chronicles of Riddick or something from Batman or something. Like you expect to see Batman going through there, but I'm sure he would probably get annoyed with all the pedestrians constantly wandering through. But Normally there, I guess during, I think, spring and summer, they have a bunch of daily. They have bats flying in and out. But when I was there, that wasn't something that was going on. I was around there in November, so that was something I missed. But there was a lot of bat shit everywhere, so you can tell this is the main road that they take out, the main trail that they take. Uh, this was also kind of cool. This was also a place that I met a friend. I didn't meet a ton of friends along the way on this trip, but this was, I mean, I met a lot of people, but no one that I actually genuinely got close with and linked up with later. And this was a guy that he actually asked me to take a picture of him because I was the only person down there along with him not wearing a mask. That's a pretty good way to start a friendship. Um, but we started talking, and I guess he had drove all the way from New Hampshire all the way to Carlsbad just to get away and get out of town for a while. And I ended up turning around and backtracking with him. He was going the opposite direction of me in the cave, so I turned around and we walked out the opposite way and explored together. We got up to the van. I showed him the van, and we ended up going and getting some Mexican food for dinner. And it was a good time. And I told him that if I ever, or when I get to New Hampshire, I'll stop off and see him again, which I did. So hey, shout out to Sully, man. It was awesome meeting you. I hope to see you again sometime. That night I stayed at a rest area in Texas. That was the first night that I made it to Texas, and I was happy to be in Texas. Actually, I spent over 2 months in Texas, and it was one of my favorite states all along the way. I like staying in a rest area also because it's kind of nice. You get 24/7 access to bathrooms. It's normally pretty quiet. Feels pretty safe. There's cameras around, but it's a nice, easy spot, and no one bothers you there. Normally they have cameras kind of watching also, so that you feel a little bit safe. Although I am normally kind of far off away from the building to give myself a little space. But that morning I woke up and I went to the Guadalupe Mountains, which I think is a national park as well. But I just did a hike through McKittrick Canyon, and it was a cool spot. It was a really nice hike. One of the things that jumped out the most actually was just a tree. I know how exciting a tree, but it was a really cool tree. I looked it up. It's called the Texas Mandrone. This smooth bark and these different colors and the way that it twisted together. Really interesting tree that was, I think, specific to that area. It's called the Texas Mandrone, so I assume it's specific to that area. But there may be other places. I'm not sure. But up at the top of the hill, at the top of the hike, I met this old lady that was telling me, she looked like a local, that was telling me that the rock up at the top, there's always this debate going on whether it's a snail or a turtle, and I decided that it was a turtle, mostly because I'm a Ninja Turtles fan, and turtles are just cooler than snails. Snails, I don't know. Can you imagine Teenage Mutant Ninja Snails? That just doesn't roll off the tongue quite as much. It's not as intimidating. So I went the turtle. You'll have to let me know what you think of it. After that, I still had enough time in the day where I could make it to Big Bend National Park, which I wasn't originally planning on going to Big Bend, but I figured I'll probably never be in that area again, so I'm going to make it happen while I'm here. It's a lot of driving to get out there. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's on the Texas and Mexico border. Even when you're in the park, it's a lot of driving to go to any of the viewpoints or any of the trails. So they do have a gas station in the park, but the gas stations in the park are often more expensive because they can be. So I filled up a little bit there. I was able to get a viewpoint and check out the Rio Grande. I did a nice little hike down on a trail called the Window Trail, where you're just hiking down deep into these narrows, and you climbing down these steps that have been carved out of these polished stone. Really beautiful area also there. But I was kind of ready to go, and it was starting to get a little bit later, so I needed to find a place to stay. And leaving was actually kind of one of the most fun experiences. Not most fun, but it was an interesting thing to experience along the way. So when I was leaving, I could see in the distance a van that looked exactly like mine. It was a white Chevy camper van. And I saw it heading this direction. I started to get excited. Like, oh, look at a twin. And then as it starts to approach, I see a guy about my age with long hair with no shirt on, leaning out the window, waving his arm like crazy. So I start leaning out the window, waving at him too and giving him thumbs up. And it was kind of a cool moment of just like two dudes out here doing the same thing, same vehicle, and just like a knuckle bump as we go by, a thumbs up to other guy, like doing their own thing. Matching vans, matching dude. It was awesome. I knew there was a gas station about 20 miles away from the park, but when I got there, the gas station was closed. So I was getting pretty low on gas, and I knew I still had to make it all the way over to Sanderson, Texas. That was the next city over that had any gas stations. On the way there, I did see a couple packs of javelinas, those little wild pigs, which was kind of interesting. I didn't run over any of them and get dinner, but saw a couple packs of them. And when I was going, my gas tank got below E, farther below E than it had ever been. And as I was pulling, like I was getting close to town, I was like, all right, sweet, I'm getting close, I'm going to make it. Get into town, and me being cheap, I see the first gas station on the right, and I decide, no, they always make the first gas station in the town the most expensive one, so I'm just going to make it to the next one. But then I didn't make it to the next one. I made it about halfway through town, and I ran out of gas. And I sat there kind of just laughing to myself, like, dude, you cheapskate. You could have filled up right back there, but instead you decide to try to save your 2 cents a gallon or whatever it is, and make it to the next one, which luckily, I don't know, it must have just been like tight fumes in there or something, but I was able to kick it back on and sputter another about 1.5 miles into the gas station. And as I was pulling into the gas station, it died again. I ran out of gas as I was pulling in, and it coasted into the spot to fill up. And it was dark at night. Nobody else was there. Nobody else was there to appreciate the amazing timing that this was. And I was just overjoyed, laughing and smiling, and just so happy that I had made it into this spot. I don't know. I don't really remember where I camped out that night, but I knew that I was getting close to Texas, and I was getting closer to like the heart of Texas, getting to the middle of it. The first big city I hit was San Antonio. But like I said, I spent about 2 months in Texas. So that's what the next couple episodes are going to be about, is my time spent in Texas. One of my favorite states. Had a lot of good times there. So yeah, that's what's going to be upcoming next. Other than that, I just appreciate you taking the time to listen. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.